Hello guys, welcome back to a new video. I know that I said last week that I wasn't going to do a video this week because I'll be on a ski trip with my dad, but I just had a last minute cancellation for a session and I had a really good idea for a video still that I've been wanting to do. So I thought, why don't I do that right now so that I can give you guys something to watch this week to help you in your recovery journey with DPDR. And the topic of today is something I've been getting a lot of requests on, namely how to get rid of hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is when life itself doesn't feel normal or feel like it is as it should be, but you feel extremely hyper aware of everything you see, everything you smell, everything you hear. Sounds can get really loud, vision can get very intense, or it's difficult to really explain what it feels like or what hypervigilance is, but it's like being overly hyper aware of yourself, your own awareness, or of life itself. And I want to explain to you today how you can use 3 or 4 really simple steps to decrease this hypervigilance and to feel more normal in your experience of life again. And to do that, I wanted to give you guys the example of a car accident. I always like to use little examples to compare things to just to make it more understandable. So imagine that you go your entire life driving down the highway and everything feels completely fine. You're aware of the traffic, you're aware of the possibility of getting into a car accident, but you're not so hyper aware of it that it's all you think about or that it's all that your brain is consumed by. So you're driving and you might think about like what you're gonna eat that day, or you might think about, the place you're driving to, or you might be singing to the music. And so the experience of driving is completely normal, completely fine. You don't really question anything until the point where, say, you get into a car accident and it's a really scary car accident and you are extremely traumatized by it, or just really, just in general, traumatized by it. Not even really, but the car crash has an effect on you. Let's put it like that. What happens in your brain is before that experience, you have a rational understanding of the possibility of a car accident, but you yourself have never actually experienced the stress and the trauma and the intensity of fear from being in that situation yourself. And your brain learns through how you feel about certain things. So you never forget how something makes you feel. And so when you get into that car accident and that car accident becomes a trauma, that means that in that moment you experience an incredible amount of stress. What your brain experiences then or does then is say, okay, we had such stress in that situation, which means that it probably is a dangerous situation, which means that we will be aware next time when we're in the car to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And so after that, you might go into the car and suddenly you become extremely aware of the driving, of the traffic, and it feels like everywhere you drive, there's the possibility of getting into that car accident again. So you'll be more hyper aware to the sounds of the traffic, to the people that are driving, because your brain is scanning for that threat to make sure that you don't have to go through it again. So it's actually trying to do something really good for you. And the reason why I use this example is because in your recovery from DPDR or anxiety, this is exactly the same. There was an initial moment of trauma in which you experienced so much stress around something that your brain said, well, we're going to make sure that never happens again. And for a lot of people, the car accident with DPDR, so the initial trauma, is actually your own emotions or your own awareness itself, because either you had a really bad panic attack or either you had just that initial DPDR episode that you had no control over. And so the experience of unsafety lies either in life itself as a whole, the concept of existence, or within yourself, your own experience. So your own emotions, your own awareness. So what your brain does then is it says, okay, we need to make sure that never happens again. And so instead of constantly scanning the traffic, your brain is constantly scanning life, is constantly scanning your own experience, your own awareness. And that's what that strange hypervigilant feeling is that you become extremely over aware of everything. Your brain basically thinks that you are driving down the highway constantly and it's trying to scan for danger constantly. So, how do we get rid of this? Because I hope that this understanding in and of itself already brings you some ease in understanding that when you do feel that hypervigilance, your brain is doing really what it's supposed to do. And a first little, I didn't even write this down, but a first little step that I think you should always do when you are in that hypervigilant state is almost picture that your brain is like scanning for whatever feels unsafe and it's trying to really, really protect you. The first tip that I have for you, and again, I'll go back to the car crash, the first step lies in actually processing the initial trauma. So if you went on if you had the car crash, you will have to actually process the emotions of fear and stress that you experienced in that car crash and acknowledge how scary it was and acknowledge, wow, I really did almost lose my life, or I really did lose control of my car, and that was really scary. And taking time to really process that and move through that, really taking time to feel the feelings around the initial trauma. And that's not something you should do right away by like going into your first traumatic experience with DPDR or whatever it was and just like feeling it all at once, but taking slow steps into opening yourself up to feeling the fearful emotions that came with that, and then processing that through doing breathing exercises, being present with the emotion, and also just realizing that you're not in that situation anymore, that it was in the past and that it was scary, that right now you're alive, you're well, but just basically in general taking time to process emotions. So the second step is then to renormalize the experience that your brain has become hypervigilant to. So with the driving, you will have to practice driving again. You will have to renormalize the experience of driving over and over again while being present to show your brain that you're not getting into a car crash every time. And also that a little bit of hypervigilance is okay in the car because it's helpful as well. Say that that first experience you were on your phone or you weren't really paying attention to the traffic, a little bit more caution in the car might actually be a helpful thing in order to make sure, in fact, that that doesn't happen again. But the more you drive again and the more you renormalize that experience and the more you feel safe during driving again, the more your brain will actually start to let go of that hypervigilance. And the same goes with DPDR. It comes down to renormalizing your experience of life and renormalizing how life makes you feel and your own emotions. And so a few things you can do is, first of all, just stop questioning it. Stop questioning life. Stop questioning your own awareness. Whenever you do feel hypervigilant, just literally see that as your brain being hyper aware and looking for danger, but don't go into it and just, like I said, stop questioning it actively. And then secondly, accept life as it is, accept your experience of that moment as it is. And the third thing in that is also reconnecting to experiential experiences of life. So say that you walk in nature and you feel like you're really hyper vigilant of the trees and of the sky and of the clouds. Practicing that second step would be stop questioning the trees, stop questioning the clouds, accept them as they are. Really just say, this just is what it is. And then thirdly, reconnect to the experiential experience of nature, which means that nature is what makes us breathe, that nature is how you used to maybe play in the woods as a kid, that you try to connect back to old experiences of what the things that you've now become hypervigilant to actually used to mean in the past, will help you get back into that normalized experience of it. And I actually made a video about this that I'll also put a link in the description of if you want to get more into this reconnecting to the experiential experience. I think the title of the video was How to Feel Real Again. I'll put a link in that description, but if this topic is resonating for you, I would definitely recommend having a look at that video as well. And then the last tip is embracing the weirdness that you feel right now. I think we can also get stuck in a cycle of becoming hypervigilant of the hypervigilance itself. When we say that the hyper awareness is problematic and it has to disappear, we become even more hyper aware because we're now saying that we should avoid being hyper aware. I know this is really complicating, but I think you understand what I mean. So embrace the temporary weirdness of your experience right now. Like open your arms to it. Say, you know what, this time of my life is just a phase where I feel weird, where I feel foggy, where I feel hyper aware, and I'm just gonna roll with it. It's not gonna be forever. I'm also not gonna push it to go away very quickly. I'm just gonna focus on these last steps that Robin told me. Process my emotions, process my trauma, work on emotional regulation, renormalize life by really accepting things as they are. And lastly, embracing just that this is a temporary, weird, foggy experience in my life. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you are struggling with DPDR or existential anxiety and you need a lot of tools and help to get yourself through it, then have a look at my online recovery course. I'll put a link in the description to that. There's a really great WhatsApp community there if you want some support from other people going through it. I hope you have a beautiful weekend and I would love to see you soon in the next video. Bye!